Hello there and welcome back to Morning Express. It is 7:16 a.m. and it is Wednesday where we have Chris Hart, our relationship expert, taking us through some of those issues that may be plaguing our relationships. Today we focus on the marrying kind, how rare that kind has become, some would argue. Of course, we still keep seeing very many weddings, especially over the weekends here in Kenya. So there's still those who are out and about proposing, getting married, but there's a whole bunch, breed, number of people that don't quite have these people in their space, the marrying kind. And so we're exploring that in this hour, and we'll have our phone lines open for you in a short while so that you can be part of our conversation with Chris. Chris, who are the marrying kind?
Well, strangely enough, most people want to get married. If you look through most countries, you find that most people get married. I mean, there are some people that people won't marry. I mean, would you marry somebody who was lazy and unemployed?
They get married too, and then you start having problems.
Yeah, but you wouldn't choose to, would you?
Exactly, yes, true.
No,
true.
so there's quite a lot of guys that women won't marry, and that's their choice. It's not that they don't want to get married, it's that the women won't marry them. That unfortunately results in there being an excess of women looking for husbands.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? So there's quite a competition for the better men.
Yeah.
But then there are some men who just don't want to get married. They've just got to a place in their lives where they enjoy the sort of, well, let's call it the single life, and all that it entails.
Yes, yes, all of the flexibility
Yes, quite.
that comes
Flexibility, that's a wonderful word.
Yeah. Okay, which leaves many women then, especially now, the Kenya we're in, there's quite a number of single women who do want to get married. So the biggest question is how then to identify as they get into the arena, you know, who is this marrying kind?
Yes.
As you're going on a date, at what point when you start dating and meeting, after you've met this new person, do you know that this one is a keeper?
I mean, I think in a sense it starts before you go on the date. I think every girl should know why she's dating this guy. You know, if you're just going out because you want a good time this weekend, it really doesn't matter what you do, does it? But if you are thinking, I really do want to get married, then you shouldn't actually go out on any dates at all with somebody who doesn't fit the right pattern.
But how will you know they fit the right pattern or not if you're not going on a date with them?
Well, but you see, you shouldn't really go on a date with somebody until you've met them. You know, I'm very averse to blind dates, for example. I think they're a complete waste of time.
Really?
I think you should only really go out with people that you have at least spent a little bit of time with and talked to. And in that little bit of time, you should figure out whether this person is the sort of person who will actually get married. And so you need to start off by finding out simple things like employed, single, available at least. And then you should ask yourself one or two other questions. So, for example, men get married according to a sort of timetable. It's more complicated for women. We'll come back to that if you like. But men are very predictable in terms of when they want to get married. And broadly speaking, it's about 2 to 3 years after they start their careers. So you imagine a guy goes through whatever education he has, and 2 to 3 years later, he'll be thinking about getting married. Which means 24 for somebody who didn't go to college. It means 27 or 8 for somebody who did. Maybe 30 for somebody who's got a PhD.
Yeah.
But now, if you're going out with somebody who's not, broadly speaking, of the right age, actually you're wasting your time. He's either too young or too old. Is that making sense?
Right.
So I know that sounds awfully simplistic, but you must be going out with a guy of the right age.
What is the right age? What is the age of the marriage?
Well, like I say, it's broadly speaking a function of how much education he's got.
Okay.
So if you're with a guy and you realize that he's got a degree, then he needs to be in his late 20s. And if he's not in his late 20s...
Are there guys in the late 20s thinking about getting married, Chris?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Really?
That's the curious thing about men. They are still getting married, broadly speaking, at the same age men have always got married, which is when their careers are established.
Yeah.
And it's not true for women. Women are following a different pattern, and then that's causing a lot of trouble. But yes, broadly speaking, men get married 27, 28, 29, 30-ish. And
in Kenya?
Yes.
Because I was like, you're talking about a different country. I find that most men are just, okay.
There are several groups of men that don't get married.
Right.
You see, we talked about one of them. There's the
Yes.
guys who are just lazy, bone idle, and all the rest of it, living a very weird life. The women they don't go out with them looking for marriage partners. They go out because they're fun and exciting, and you can have a good night dancing.
Right.
But they don't get married. And there's a lot of guys who slip past that time scale, who haven't got married by, say, 30-ish. Now they form another category. They don't get married because they've got used to the single life. They're actually enjoying being footloose and fancy-free.
Yes.
And you don't want to go out with those either because they don't propose. They string you along for years. You could have a 5-year relationship and not actually get a proposal.
Right.
You see what I mean? It's a bit different.
It's a bit different. So there are guys who get comfortable in being single, such that you have somebody who comes to clean the house. You don't really need a wife to come and keep your house clean. Nowadays in supermarkets, there's food. You can just go get ready food and pack it in the refrigerator. You don't need somebody to come and cook. So you're good. And if you want kids, you could adopt.
Yes, I'm afraid these guys have kids all over the place. They have girlfriends in every town.
They do, and quite a number of kids there feeling the world.
Yeah, that is true, I'm afraid. That's the other group you've got to avoid if you want to get married. If you want to get married and be monogamous and have a traditional sort of family arrangement, you have to avoid those guys. So you often hear me say, don't go out with a guy who's still single after 35, because he's definitely in that category.
So a single guy after 35, there's a problem.
He's likely to be one of the people who doesn't actually want to get married. He'll say he does.
To get you to stick around.
Play all sorts of games with your mind. But he's actually quite happy the way he is. And he'll endlessly have 2 to 3 year relationships until some lady gets fed up and sees through him and kicks him out again, and then he'll start all over again.
Wow. If you're watching this, you want to be part of our conversation, our phone lines will be on your screen shortly. You can call us. Perhaps you're there looking, and it's proven to be quite the task, uphill, to find that marriageable person. Or you've just had several experiences, or you have a question for Chris in as far as what to do to make yourself that candidate that is good for marriage, that everybody... and understand we already have who from Nairobi? Esther. Esther, good morning. Hello.
Morning.
How are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for calling. Share with us your comment or question.
Okay. My question was, at some point, I was in a relationship where the guy wanted to get married, but I wasn't ready. And so I broke up the relationship. And this guy sort of got into a rebound relationship 3 months after the relationship to another girl who was also rebounding, who had been dumped by the boyfriend. Do you think this could be real? Because why I ask you is because when this guy wanted to marry me, I was right from school. I still had dreams. I was not ready. And this guy was dying to get married or something of the sort.
So you're wondering if he was genuine in wanting to marry you because after 3 months he rebounded?
Yes.
Okay.
So right now, the guy was good, and I did love him. But I always felt like he was pushing me to the edge. I couldn't really put up with the pressure because I still had dreams. I was just right from school. But now I'm ready. I'm done with school, ready, working.
You're ready? How old are you now, if you don't mind asking?
25.
25. So you feel you're ready, but are you dating?
Nope.
All right.
But I'm a bit scared to get into a relationship because I think I still have feelings for the other guy. I don't know.
Okay. Thank you, Esther, for calling. We'll address your concern with Chris. So for Esther, it's a situation of you want to marry me and I'm not ready, and then, break up, and in 3 months you're ready with somebody else.
Yes.
That's a short time.
Yeah. Now, of course, she's first of all demonstrating what I said about men. When a man wants to get married, it becomes the most important thing in his life. It becomes the focus of his life, and he puts everything else in second place. So, yes, men are very prone to rebounding in that situation, because if something fails, they instantly go out looking for another wife.
Yeah.
And, of course, the guy will probably have some problems, because if you start a permanent relationship in 3 months, there are a lot of things that can go wrong. I mean, maybe they've done it perfectly. Maybe they'll be very happy, but the odds are against them.
Yeah.
But yes, it's a very common thing to happen, particularly for men.
To get into a rebound shortly after.
Yes, because if the guy is, she didn't say, but if he's 27, 28 and thinking about getting married, it becomes the most important thing in his world, so he goes out and does it.
And she mentions that she's now scared. She does want to get married, but she's not very comfortable about getting into a relationship. What's the concern there? What do you think is the problem?
Well, I guess she feels she's been let down. She feels bad about what happened, particularly about the fact that he suddenly, after such a short time, he's with somebody else. I don't think she should be afraid. I think she should just go and try for it.
Yeah.
She's a nice age. There will be a lot of men who will love to be with her.
You know, 25 is... I don't remember when I was 25. It's a good age.
It's a lovely age, particularly for a guy of 27, 28. He'll be thinking, wow, she's lovely and she wants to be married. And of course, she will find a lot of guys chasing after her. Her task is to make sure she doesn't end up with any of the rogues.
Yeah.
She must be quite distant with them to begin with, until she's sussed out that these are marrying types.
Yes.
And the moment she's done that, she can afford to date them.
What has changed now, in your opinion, Chris, from Kenya in 30, 40 years ago? You know, you'd see very many people getting married. Marriage was more easier then. You'd not have this kind of a conversation at that time. Now, we're having it because there's so many issues around it.
Yes.
Getting married has become quite, identifying that partner has become quite the challenge. What has changed?
Well, two things really. One is urbanization. I mean, if you're talking 50 or 100 years ago, almost everybody was living in some sort of village or small town, and you knew everybody, and you married somebody local. And in that situation, it's fairly straightforward to get married, because you know already quite a lot about them. You've probably known them all your life.
Yeah.
If you haven't known them, you've known their family or where they live. You know a lot about them. And there's a fair certainty that both of you are going to do something similar to what your parents did in their lives. So everything's very straightforward. Now we live in great big cities where the only people you meet are total strangers, and you spend the first 5 minutes figuring out where they come from and stuff like that. It's much more difficult to choose a partner in that situation. The other thing that's changed is, of course, everybody's educated. You know, 100 years ago, very few people were educated, other than traditionally. Now, of course, not only are the men educated, the women are educated, and people have two focuses in their lives. One is about family, but the other is career. And it's that fight between career priorities and family priorities that causes a lot of trouble.
Yeah, in terms of what focus is going into what, how much attention?
Yes, I mean, she didn't say, but, you know, I'll make a small bet that the reason why she wasn't ready to marry was that she was focusing on other aspects of her life, probably her career or her education. And that focus wasn't there 100 years ago. People really looked forward to being married. They wanted to be grown up. They wanted to have a family and a status of their own. And they achieved that through marriage. Now we put a lot of focus on other aspects of our lives, particularly career. And of course that results in particularly women delaying marriage. So one of the big hassles that's around nowadays is women who have allowed themselves to go into their 30s without really focusing on marriage. Suddenly there aren't very many men around because they've all got married. The men are marrying early. They're marrying down, in effect. What they do is they would love to marry somebody with an identical qualification to theirs, perhaps, identical career, but those ladies are not keen to marry. So they marry somebody who's got slightly lower ambitions, and they're very happy.
Okay, Chris, one of the things I've come to realize just hearing stories from people I know, reading online, it's really concerning that there are these people who appear to be the marriage type, and they're perfect. But the concern is that they're too good to be true. They're con artists. So many of them. You know, that there's this man you will meet and he'll be all manner of good. Even your friends will be like, oh my God, Sophia, that is an awesome guy. You need to be walking down the aisle already. And for the women as well. But these are people who, from the very beginning, they've set it in their minds, perhaps they want to get married to you, because after that, you'll sort out some of the challenges they have, and then later on you'll begin to realize, oh, this was not as it seemed. So why is it becoming so easy to get people blindsided in as far as this con artists that are
First of all, I think con artists do it because they can. And what's going on, of course, is that, bear this thought in mind, most women will not marry a whole raft of men like criminals and drug addicts and all the rest of it. Once you've removed them from the population, you're left with far less men than there are women in that age group, in the age group just under 30. That means that there's a premium on the best men. Every woman is chasing after the best man. Yeah. Now, he, of course, some of them think, wow, this is lovely. It means I get the choice of the best wives. But some of them think, I've got a business here. I can lead these women astray and have a wonderful time. And partly, I hate to say this, it's partly the women's own fault, because if you chase after the guy with all the bling and all the lifestyle and all the fancy cars and all the rest of it, there's a high probability you're chasing one of those sorts of guys. So if, on the other hand, you chase people who are more down to earth and more straightforward, that's how you avoid them.
But we need to talk more about the too good to be true.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Olga from Kisumu is calling us. Olga, good morning.
Good morning, Sophia.
Good, thank you for calling. Share with us your question or comment.
Question.
Sorry?
I wanted to ask a question.
Yes.
I wanted to ask this question.
Go ahead.
I've been dating this guy for 7 years. And he knows my family. And I know his family. But he doesn't seem like someone who's ready to, like, go to the next level. But he keeps on telling me that he loves me and he doesn't want to let go. So I'm
that he loves you and?
Let go, or should I keep on? Yeah?
He keeps saying that he loves you, but what?
He loves me. And he wants to stay.
Right.
But I am sad that I feel like he'll go on like this until one day he wants to settle down.
Okay. Yeah. 2 quick questions. How long did you say you've been dating?
7 years.
7 years. So does he want to get married? Do you want to get married?
Yeah, I've always thought of settling down sometime. I've asked him.
You've asked him?
Yeah, I've asked him if someday he's feeling like he'll settle down.
And what does he say when you bring it up?
He keeps on telling me yes, but not sure.
What is he not sure? Do you probe him further? Have you had arguments on it? Because when somebody says not sure, it would be good to know, what his concerns are.
I don't know what concerns him so much, because first of all, he doesn't even want to be working hard. Like, he doesn't work hard. I do stuff for him.
Does he have a job?
I support him so much. He doesn't have a job. Partly he tried something, but he keeps on letting go.
All right, so he doesn't have a job. You're paying the bills. I just want to know your age and his age.
I'm 25.
How old is he?
26.
26, and you've been dating 7 years. Okay, we're going to talk about that with Chris. Thank you for calling.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So Olga there finds herself in a situation she's paying the bills.
Yes.
The man is not working.
She's named just about every risk factor I've ever heard.
Every risk factor, yeah?
If I were her, I'd run for the hills. First of all, they got to know one another very young, and you change a lot over that period, sort of 19 to 27, and he's changed, she's changed. They're not the same people they were. The fact that he's not working, he's not got a real focus in his life, wow, hopeless. Must not go there.
Right.
The second thing, of course, is that any guy who's been in a relationship for quite a long time gets comfortable, and This guy is clearly not the sort of person who commits to anything, let alone a marriage.
Yeah.
And I think he will be the sort of guy who will never really settle into a proper relationship.
Okay.
What he'll do is he might even walk up the aisle with her, but she will never be able to trust him. When things go wrong, he'll disappear. So
Wow.
I think her best bet is to call a halt on this relationship and go looking for a different sort of guy altogether.
Yeah, because one of the things she mentioned was, you know, the families know each other. It's been
Yeah.
7 years. And for girls and most people, it will be the minute he's comfortable enough to have introduced you to his family, then you think, yeah.
Yeah. In fact, there's something important also in addition.
Right.
If a relationship doesn't progress more or less on rails through the steps of courtship to a marriage on a time scale of 2 years maximum,
Yeah.
then it's very likely to end up like she is, with somebody who's been with her for a long time and keeps saying, oh, I love you, but I don't really want to go into
To
a
get
marriage.
married. So for her, the best option is to leave unless she wants to continue being...
I think she's got a real lifetime decision to make. I mean, she may love this guy to distraction, and if she's prepared to put up with the fact that he'll just be there in her life and not really achieve very much,
Yeah.
well, fair enough. But I wouldn't if I were her.
I know, because my fear, and what I think would happen is with time, she'd resent him. Because when you think you're at 26, 25, you want to get married, he's not quite there, you're 30, 35, and you're like, oh my gosh, you know, and resentment slowly
The worst thing is this. At the moment, she's working and she's okay with paying the bills. They're effectively single people.
Right.
But now, fast forward to the point where she wants to have a family and she wants to take a break from work, or she wants to go part-time or something like that. She wants him to pick up his share of the burden.
Right.
And if he hasn't established himself soon, he's never going to do that. He's either got to start a really successful business, or he's got to go and get himself a job, because in a year or two's time, he's going to be unemployable. You know, because people look at CVs, and if they see big long gap, you know, went to school, went to college, maybe didn't get a job,
Right.
you become unemployable. So he's either got to find a job pretty damn quick, or he's got to start a business, and he's got to get into that mindset where he's determined to succeed. It doesn't sound like he's there.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. In a few years' time, she's going to be very fed up with this guy. Well, she doesn't want to give him the best years of her life. She's at a lovely age. She could start again very happily, and she
Okay.
should.
Other aspects of the marrying kind, of course, is Chris being able to evaluate and look at this person who, as I said before we took that call, could just be too good. Can somebody just be too, or a
Yeah,
pair
I mean,
and their issues?
you know what the financial people say, don't you? That if you see a deal and it's just too good, well, it is, because there are rules in this sort of thing. You know, if somebody's offering you a huge high interest rate, there's definitely something wrong with that deal.
Yeah.
It's the same with marriages. If somebody is quite obviously too good, then the chances are it's all a thin veneer, and underneath it lies something you don't want to know about. Real people are quite transparent, actually. You know, they tell you all their troubles, you can understand their lives. Their lives are complicated like everyone else, and they struggle. They've never got enough money and so on.
Yeah.
So if you're with somebody who's just too perfect, the clothes are just perfect, the car is just perfect, he tells you this wonderful story about his lifestyle,
Yes.
it's probably not true.
Right.
I know people who borrow clothes to go out with their girlfriends, you know. Borrow cars, and you know, it's really funny.
That is
sometimes.
so sad. That
Yeah.
one should even get to the place where you feel you need to pretend to be somebody else in order to appeal.
Yeah, the trouble is, you see, that sort of guy has got very short-term goals.
Yeah.
Very short-term goals.
Clearly, yeah.
Yeah, he's out for a good weekend, and he doesn't care what you find out on Monday. So you don't want to go with people like that.
What about, because sometimes it's when you've been with somebody for quite a while, and then you keep hearing, you know, little things about what their history was all about. In terms of finding out their dating history, their background, what's the best way? Because I think that would point a good indicator to the kind of a person and whether they're marriage type.
I mean, the ideal thing is that you start out with somebody that you actually know, and not necessarily know, but I mean in the sense that you have mutual friends, and maybe you're at school together, or maybe you work together, or in some way you've got an inkling about what their life is about before you actually start dating. In the absence of that, then what you have to do is ask them. You have to talk to them, and they should tell you, broadly speaking, their history. And you should get skilled at spotting the inconsistencies. It's a bit like HR reading CVs. You know, you read a CV and you think, ah, come on. You've got to get like that. And if you hear this story about relationships that didn't work and so on, you should add them all up and think, this doesn't sound right.
Yeah, doesn't sound right. Emma is calling us from Nairobi. Emma, good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for calling. Go ahead with your question or comment.
Okay. I don't know if this is a question or a concern or an observation, but I just want to know, why is it that we are having so many men at the age of, let's say, 39 and 40 who are still single? Should that be a red flag?
Women at the age of?
Men at the age of 39, 40, you know, and they're still single.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so should that be a red flag? You know, should you be worried about, you know, such kind of men? Is there a problem, or, well, I don't know.
All right, thank you. Yeah,
thanks.
so quite a number of those men.
Yes.
And I know of a few, and actually that concern, somebody was asking me the other day, you know, there's this guy, he's, I think he's what, 43, and he's pretty much got it all. But why is he single?
Yes, yeah. My general rule, as I've said before, is that if a guy is that age and he's single, then he won't get married. He's settled into a lifestyle where he's perfectly content. He probably has got a whole string of girlfriends. He's certainly had a lot of short relationships. He's certainly probably got 2 or 3 girls chasing after him all the time, and he's loving it. You see, and
having the time of his life.
Yes, he's having the time of his life, and he's taking a very short-term view of everything. He doesn't imagine that in 20 years' time he really would like to have had a family, and I mean under one roof and all that stuff, for a long, long time, so that he's settled. But he's thinking, hey, I'm having a real good time. Why should I change? One of the reasons I think why there are more people like this is that men, just like women, are getting caught into this career trap. There's a lot of men who they missed the boat in their late 20s. They thought deeply about getting married at that time. But for some reason, the girl of their dreams didn't want to get married. And so they hang around for a bit longer. And then she gets offered a job in Kuala Lumpur, and he's suddenly single again at the age of 33, 34. Well, what happens? He starts doing the clubs and the bars and suddenly discovers he loves it.
And it works perfectly.
And it works perfectly for him. Yeah.
Okay. The divorcees, the widow, the widower, there are many who'd want to get married, but in terms of how they're viewed by society, being the marriage type, let's begin with the divorcees, people who've been divorced.
Well, I actually think they're a very good bet. I think a guy who got married in his late 20s and then in his late 30s or early 40s he finds himself alone again, he's actually good marriage material.
But what if he's,
it depends why he got divorced.
Good, yeah.
If you discover that the reason why he got divorced is because he had a string of infidelities and da-di-da-di-da, well, then you know what to do. But if he got divorced for the usual reasons, which are that he's put too much work into his career, spent too much time with the boys, and led a reasonable life, he will have learnt from his mistakes. He will have discovered that actually families are really important and he should spend more time with them. And so by the time a guy gets to about 45, 50, he's a much nicer guy. And so I would actually say, don't be in the least bit afraid. If you're a woman in your 30s looking for a husband, go for a guy like that.
Why is it sometimes, Chris, that people who've been divorced, when you talk to them about why they got divorced, most of the time it's always the other person, their partner who was...
We always do that, don't we? It's always someone else's fault. But you can figure it out. You know, if you get to the point in the relationship where you're being honest with one another, then you will have several evenings where you'll tease his marriage apart, and you'll understand the real issues in his marriage. And so long as they are things that are tolerable, like too much work, for example, then fine, you'll be all right. But of course, if you know that there's a poisonous ex and there were 2 more before and there's a bitter custody battle going on, then you know, go somewhere else.
And we'll talk about children in a short while, but let's speak to George. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for calling. Your question or comment or concern?
Okay, I would like to ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I've been dating this guy for 7 months.
Right.
And twice she has told me that she's not comfortable with the kind of relationship that you are having.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd like to ask whether if I can still go with her, and I've been trying to change. But she told me that I give her some bit of time that she can think and tell me whether still go on. So my concern is it appropriate for me to continue with her, or I just hold on and get her answer?
Well, she said that she's not comfortable with the relationship you're having. What
Yes.
kind of a relationship, if you don't mind us asking?
Okay, we have been, okay, the kind of relationship that you have been having is that, okay, we still live in different areas.
Okay.
And sometimes she would come to my house, and we would share some part of some things that are about life.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes she will tell me that sometimes I don't take good care of her.
Okay.
And for me, I've got some kind of so many responsibilities which I have.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been trying to talk to her.
Right.
About, yes.
George, how old are both of you?
Okay, for me, I'm 27 and she's 24.
And have you talked about marriage? Is it something you both want, or do
Yes,
either of you?
yes, we have talked about it.
Uh-huh.
And she has told me that she wants to settle down.
Right.
But she told me that she wants to think with her head and not with her heart.
And what about you? Are you ready?
Me, I'm so much ready.
Okay.
And so what she told me that I just give her some bit of time.
Yeah. So your concern is that she's asking for some time.
Yes, she's asking for some time to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Then from there, then we just kick off. So I was just thinking, could that time be too long for me, or could I was just asking for some advice?
Okay. Thank you, George. Asante sana. So there is George.
Classic. They're falling into the trap we were just talking about.
Yeah.
He's 27, so ready, typical guy. She's 24. She's probably thinking about her career. She wants to stay working a little longer. She doesn't want to have a family too soon. And I'm afraid she's likely to string him along 1 year at a time for quite a while. And so if he's serious that he wants to get married now, he really ought to gently say goodbye to her and find somebody who's ready to get married.
Right.
Now, the other thing, the test really for them is that I think I heard them say that it's a long-distance relationship.
Yeah, they're probably still in the same area. They're not living together.
Okay.
At least, yeah.
Well, one way or another, they've got to start making plans to live together.
After 7 months.
Well, I don't mean like move in tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got to start making plans.
Okay.
And if those plans really sound good and they start working towards them, then a marriage will result. But if she resists those plans, then she really isn't ready.
Okay.
So he should move on.
He should move on. There you have it, George from Chris. We're glad you're watching Morning Express. Our conversation with Chris will continue in the next hour of the show. We are about to demystifying the marriage type and talking about the different groups and who perhaps is one of those you need to stay away from, and how to. We will talk about that to make yourself, if you want to get married, that person that everybody would think, yeah, if I bag that, I'm good to go. Welcome back to Morning Express. Beautiful Wednesday it is. We are all about your relationships this morning, the marriage or marrying kind, to be more specific. Chris Hart is having that conversation with me this morning. So Chris, as much as we're talking about the other person and evaluating what's good, what's bad, what to beware of, turning that mirror to ourselves and in that conversation to the person who's looking to get married, what is it they also need to work on?
Well, I think a starting point is to realize what you're looking for in a relationship.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's very unfair of people to go into relationships knowing that they're not ready to marry. They should say to the other person, hey, you know, this is just fun. We're just going to have a good time. Right. Rather than implying that they're going to get married. A lot of people do go in pretending that they are the marrying kind, and actually they know in their hearts that they're not, that they're not ready for lots of good reasons. I'm not saying they should marry. I'm saying that, you know, a young woman in her late 20s probably wants to focus on her career for a little longer. Fine, but say that to the guys you're with so that they know where they stand. What's really awful are these relationships that go on for 3, 4, 5 years, both pretending that they're going to get married, and actually one of them doesn't want to. Sometimes it's the man, sometimes it's the woman. And that's very unfair.
We had mentioned, when we were talking about the divorcees, the widows and the widowers, in terms of them being the marriage type, especially a person, I mean, because they have been married and then they lost their partner.
I mean, to be honest, people who've lost a partner in, say, a car accident or something like that are a very safe bet to remarry. They're usually very good people. There's no reason why their relationship ended. It's not like there was infidelity or something like that. They're often very anxious to remarry, and the biggest danger with them is that it all happens too quickly. So if you do find yourself meeting somebody like that, really a space of about 2 years wants to occur before you actually tie the knot with them. Let them work out all the things in their lives.
Because the danger, as you said, would be if they still are hungover and they bring that, you know, baggage to your relationship. Kipto is calling us from Embu. Kipto, good morning.
Good morning, madam.
Thank you for calling. Your question or comment?
Yes, I have a comment. Mimi recently nafanya kazi Embu.
Right.
Na mimi by the way nilikuwa na msichana. Sasa nikawa msichana akawa nilikuwa nimepromise yeye nitamuoa yeye. Lakini sasa akawa mdanganyifu. Kumbe alikuwa na relationship ingine kando. In the process akapata mimba kutoka mjamaa. Sasa ikawa mimi nika give up na yeye. Sasa I'm still single, 29. Na mimi I'm still searching for somebody mwenye ako serious. Sasa nilikuwa nasema inategemea, unajua sasa utapata mtu mwingine hata ako 40 na sio ati kwa sababu ya maybe ubaya yake ama nini, because maybe yule partner wake alikuwa mtu wa zigzag. Inategemea. Sio ati mapenzi ya mtu. Kama mimi sasa nilikuwa nioe nikiwa 27. Lakini sasa yule tulikuwa naye akawa mdanganyifu, akapata mtoto kutoka kwa mjamaa mwingine. Na hiyo mjamaa amemdamp yeye. I'm still single, 29, working, earning pesa mzuri. Sasa mimi naogopa hata kufanya relationship na msichana mwingine, kwa sababu sasa wasichana inategemea. Msichana ataweza kudanganya kabisa, kukula alafu akudamp.
Thank you very much. Tunakuombea mazuri, tunaomba Mungu atakusaidia upate msichana ambaye atakuwa mwaminifu. All right. Thank you, Kipto, who's calling us from Embu. So I don't know if you understand Swahili, but he, you know, says he's not 29. When he was 27, he was in a relationship, very committed, wanted to marry this lady. She cheated on him, got a child, they broke up. So he was making a comment in as far as sometimes when you find a man single at 40, it is not because they just, you know, want to be single. It's because sometimes of eventualities or incidences like what happened to him, you know, relationships gone sour, and he hopes to find love still. I like his spirit. Says he's stable, he has a good job, he's got money. Suppose he's good looking as well. All the best to him. But yeah, there are people hopeful.
Well, it does happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I often say that the only excuse for a guy being single after his mid-30s is that he's either very, very shy or looking after an aging mother, or he's been in a relationship for many years and for some reason it ended.
Yeah.
You know, and if the relationship ended for reasons that clearly weren't his fault, if that's a reasonable thing to say, then of course he's okay. But of course part of the skill of living your life is to avoid getting into these situations where you have a relationship with somebody and after 2 years they cheat. What you really want to do is pick up much earlier that they're that sort of person and not proceed in the relationship. You know, the signals that tell you that somebody's not trustworthy are very clear. And if you're watching for them in the first weeks, months of a relationship, you can say, okay, I don't think I ought to go on with this person. I certainly shouldn't marry them.
Right.
So maybe the skill he's got to learn is spotting girls like that one much sooner, so that he doesn't get into another 2, 3, 4 year relationship and do the whole same thing again. He must not do that. And to be honest, there's a real danger he will, because whatever it is he finds attractive in women is presumably things that come along with that lifestyle. And there's a very good chance that he'll start a relationship with another girl and she'll do exactly the same thing to him. So I understand his fears, but he needs to improve his social skills and his awareness so that he does not fall into that trap again.
Same trap. Then when you're talking about, there was an article in the Nairobian about the undateable type, and we have had that conversation about, you know, these careers, people practicing in them are classified as the undateables and the unmarriageable kind. But when you're looking for a partner and they happen to be in one of this that have those kind of tags, it is important to still get to know somebody for who they are, just because somebody's
yeah, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with being very, very good friends with somebody, but if you know they're one of the undateable, unmarriageable, well then don't pin your hopes on marrying them.
But what if they're in a career that's deemed to be because of maybe the hours they work, the kind of attention they get? Yeah, you should still get to know them.
By all means get to know them, but don't pin your hopes on marrying them.
Why?
Because it's not going to happen.
Why?
Well, I mean, think about it. You know, there are so many people who live lives where they don't have a social life, they have no time to get to know you. They will never make the decision to marry.
Okay.
And that's true for both men and women. There are lots of people it's very unsafe to enter long-term relationships with because the chances of them marrying or successfully marrying are quite low. I mean, on the one hand, you've got the rogues, the criminals. At the other end, you've got people who are absolutely wedded to some career and they don't want to give it up. At some point, you have to make compromises in your life in order to establish a family. And if you sense you're with someone who's not prepared to do that, I mean, a classic example is somebody whose lifestyle is every 2 years they move to another part of the world. Well, not compatible with having a family, really.
Definitely is not going to happen. Mwangi, good morning, calling us from Nakuru.
Yeah, morning.
Morning, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And you?
I am awesome. Your question or comment?
Yeah, mine is more of a comment, huh?
Right.
Yeah, I was married for 17 years, huh? And lost my wife in an accident, huh?
Pole sana.
4 years ago, huh? And in the process of trying to remarry,
right,
somebody told me, Mwangi, you have lived your life. Why do you want to get back to it? Why do you get back this to marriage business? What would be your comment?
Okay. So now it's been 4 years, you still want to remarry?
I would not mind, but listening to advice from my friends.
Okay.
Saying, Mwangi, at 52, you have lived your life.
All right.
Why go back to it?
Thank you. We will address that. Thank you for calling. So 52, lost his wife 4 years ago, and everybody thinks he should, you know.
Well, I don't think he should listen to his friends. I think he's very marriageable. If he decides he'd like to marry, I promise him there are lots and lots of ladies who think he'll be lovely. So, yeah, sure, he should go looking for somebody. Obviously, he should concentrate on somebody of mature years. It's not a good idea for him to marry a 23-year-old. There will be lots of problems if he does. He should marry somebody who's perhaps in the same situation as him, or divorced, or 40 but never married, but finally got sick of her career. And okay, he will probably end up with somebody who might want to have another child or two, so he needs to face that possibility. But one way or another, his life will be much better if he does find somebody and start again. You know, there's nothing more miserable than getting to the age of 60 and being single, because suddenly you're beginning to be sidelined and there's nobody in your life, and you don't want to be there.
Yeah, so some advice there in terms of the age group, definitely not the 20s.
Definitely not the Bamba 20s.
Yeah.
He should go for somebody who's lived a bit of life and got some maturity, and maybe already has a family, maybe not. But one way or another, there is somebody there who's looking for him, I promise him.
Yeah, and I like that you say he should, because I think so too. I mean, it's important to
you know, 52, he's got perhaps 30 years in front of him. Does he really want to spend those years on his own?
Yeah. Marriage, in terms of, we're talking about the kind and the type, how closely do we need to be looking and evaluating at the friends and family of this other person in determining whether they're marriageable? Does that even come into play?
Oh yes, it surely does.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you need to know that they have family and friends, and you need to know them. I mean, some people try to keep you away from them.
Yes.
Some people try and cut you out from their families. You don't know who their friends are. You might not even know where they live. You don't want to be with people like that. One of the criteria for deciding you're going to marry somebody is that you know everything about them. You know where they live, you know what they do, you know their friends. And then when you know their friends, you should decide what sort of friends they are. And if they're very much the single, clubbing all the weekends, out till 4 a.m., and he's enjoying being with them, that's a very big black mark against him. So you need to know them and judge what sort of friends they are. If, on the other hand, they're most of them married, most of them settled, got good jobs, they're going to be a significant influence on him, and he's much more likely to be a successful husband.
All right, Chris, I hope through all the things we have discussed this morning, somebody out there who's hoping to get married will get lucky, will get fortunate and blessed sometime soon. But thank you for joining us on the show this morning. As always, there you have it, the marrying type or kind. They are out there, but it's important to keep in mind those telltale signs, and of course also make yourself that person that somebody would want to settle down with. Stay with us right here on KTN, because we're not done yet. We still have one more conversation to go. On the 28th of this month, for the very first time, Kenya will mark World Rare Disease Day. I don't know it's world, but it's Rare Disease Day for sure. It's a conversation we'll be having in a short while, so stay tuned. Don't go away.